Let me turn on the recording. So for everyone that is late or is missing today, can go back and watch this. My name is Katie Davidson. I'm the Senior Notes Editor for Volume 59. Welcome. I'm really glad to meet you all. I wish we could be meeting a little bit differently, but I'm really excited to be here with you, and I hope that you learn a lot today, and that we can answer any questions, and we can dive into this volume as quickly and easily as possible. You're going to be getting a lot of information today, so just remember that all of your editors, including me, including April, our editor-in-chief, and also your team editors, they are a resource for you, and we're all just here to help you understand, because we've all been there, from writing the notes to doing the editing assignments. Every one of us has done it. So I'm going to pass this off to April, and we're going to get started. If you have any questions, just pop them in the chat on the side. And if you have any private inquiries, I think there's a private chat option. So just take it away, April.
I gotta turn my sound back on. Hello everyone, and welcome to our Volume 59 new member orientation. Thank you so much for being here. We wish that we could be together with you guys in person, but obviously due to COVID-19 and the school not holding events, we are having this orientation virtually. The good thing about this is all of these resources that we're about to walk you through have been pre-recorded, and they're going to be available for you to reference later if you ever need a refresher via Teams. So I first off just want to say once again, congratulations to all of you. You should be so incredibly proud of yourselves. We had some really incredible applicants this year, and we really felt like you guys were the best of the best. So just once again, on behalf of the board, congratulations and welcome. And we're just so thrilled to have all of you. So you'll see on our agenda for today, we are essentially going to go through the two main aspects of Law Review membership, which are writing your student note and editing the notes and articles to be published in Volume 59. I know virtual meetings can be exhausting, so we're going to get right to it. Thank you again for being here, and just sit back, listen, take notes if you'd like, and we'll get started. First, we'll hear from Professor Metzmeyer.
Greetings. I'm Kurt Metzmeyer from the Law Library. As a former member and longtime advisor, I'd like to welcome you to the University of Louisville Law Review. I want to congratulate you for the adventure you're going to begin and encourage you to get the best out of this experience. Law Review was one of my favorite experiences in law school because it was an opportunity to do something real and work in collaboration with great people who have become lifelong friends. You will be able to put out a real issue, edit and publish real articles, and maybe see your own work published. There aren't a lot of law school experiences that will be on your law firm biography 15 years from now, but Law Review will be one of them. And if your note is published, you'll be still checking Google Scholar for new citations for years to come. So work hard and make the experience count. As first-year members, you're auditioning for next year's editorial positions. Everything you do is a deposit in a bank of trust that will be drawn on as those editors are selected. As a liaison to the Law Review from the library, I hope to hear from you as you research your notes, and I'll be available by email or phone or video chat whenever you want to talk to me. Once again, congratulations for being selected. Enjoy orientation to the extent you can, and enjoy your experience on Law Review.
Okay, next up, we're going to hear a little bit about our symposium. We have a symposium every year that we host as a law review where we invite scholars to our school and collaborate with them. So I want to pass the mic to Sarah Pennington, who is our senior symposium editor. Sarah, can you talk a little bit about our symposium this year?
Oh, yeah, guys, just 1 second. Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. So I'm Sarah Pennington. I'm the senior symposium editor for the University of Louisville Law Review, and I'm really excited to welcome you guys on board. In addition to your editing and note writing responsibilities, you will also be required to participate in our annual symposium. If you've never participated in a symposium before, that's absolutely no problem. We are going to get you prepared for that this fall. But just very briefly, a symposium is an academic discussion focused on a particular subject. Because we're partnering with the COSEL conference this year, our symposium will focus on labor and employment. Typically 4 to 8 academics will produce articles on the subject, and each of those articles will be discussed and critiqued by a small group, probably 10 to 12 people. We're still kind of working that out. Our symposium is a little different because instead of just authors or academics participating, you as first-year members will also participate in the discussion and the critique. So not only is this like a really great opportunity to learn from some of the best academics in a given field, but it's also a really great opportunity to improve the quality of the articles that will appear in the symposium edition of the University of Louisville Law Review. So like I said before, we're partnering with the COSEL conference, which is being hosted by Professor Levinson and Dean Sweeney. It's going to bring really talented labor and employment scholars together from all across the United States. The symposium is taking place from Thursday, October 8th to Saturday, October 10th. The conference is taking place from Thursday, October 8th to Saturday, October 10th. But the symposium itself will be on the afternoon of Saturday, October 10th. You guys are going to be really busy in the fall. You're going to have a lot going on. The symposium is not something that needs to be on your radar right now, but make sure that you take that date and put it in your planners and plan around it, because you absolutely need to keep it free so you're available for participation. So again, please refrain from scheduling activities on Saturday, October 10th. In terms of whether our symposium will actually be physical or virtual this year, there's a lot of questions surrounding that. We don't know whether the COSEL conference itself will be physical or be virtual, but we're also preparing a virtual option in addition to a physical option. So that may be able to make participation a little bit easier for our authors and for you guys as well. But again, just keep that date free. We've already got 3 really talented authors committed, and I'm very excited for you all to be a part of this wonderful academic experience. So just let me know if you have any questions. April has posted a letter that you guys can reference if you kind of need to refresh yourself on the symposium and what it's all about. But like I said, later this fall, we'll be sending you more information and getting you prepared for the symposium. So don't feel worried about trying to figure out what's going on with it right now. Just focus on your editing duties and writing your note. But if you have any questions at all, just please feel free to reach out to me or one of my associate editors. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Sarah. Really appreciate that. So our next section is going to be a video that we're actually going to be hearing from Sarah again, and also Seth Wiseman, who is our senior articles editor. And they're going to tell you a little bit about the process of writing their notes and some tips and tricks that they had during the process.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Davidson. I'm the senior notes editor for Volume 59 of the University of Louisville Law Review. First, I want to say welcome. We're so glad to have you. I'm so glad to have you, and I really wish we could be together in person, but we do what we must to make sure that you get off on the right foot as a first-year member of this fantastic journal. The purpose of this next video segment is to familiarize yourself with the note writing process, and you're going to be hearing a lot about your note, your topic, preemption. That's all super important. Take all that to heart. But we also thought it would be helpful to hear from some of the authors who were selected for publication. So this next segment is going to include some discussion with our senior symposium editor, Sarah Pennington, and our senior articles editor, Seth Wiseman. Now, other than being fantastic humans and also senior editors of the Law Review, they also won Best Note and Runner-Up Best Note, respectively. Sarah won Best Note, and Seth won Runner-Up Best Note. So they're going to have some really great advice, some really great insight on how to get started, how to stay on point, and how to get to the finish line and hopefully get your note published in Volume 60 of Law Review. So hang in here. I have curated some questions that they're going to answer, and I'm going to try to put them together. This would be so much easier if we were in the same room and we could have a panel, but this is the best we can do under the circumstances. If you have any questions during the video, do not hesitate to drop them in the Blackboard, collaborate, chat. I hope it's on this side, over here. And we'd be happy to answer your questions. I'm always open to questions. Your notes editors are always open to questions, and Seth and Sarah, of course, are offering themselves as resources. So we're really excited to get started. I'm really excited to see what work you put out, and I'm even more excited to formally meet you all come this fall. Thanks.
And the first thing I'm going to say is that you are going to be spending a long time with your note. So be very judicious in picking your topic and make sure that it's actually something that you're passionate about, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this topic. So the way that I picked my topic was based on research I had done during my master's program. I'm in the dual JD Masters of Political Science program, so I also have political science research interests. One of those research interests is the #MeToo movement. I had developed a research paper in my master's program on the Me Too movement and kind of the success of digitally supported social movements. I knew that I wanted to write something about the #MeToo movement from a legal perspective. So going into my meeting with my mentor, who was Professor Metzmeyer, I had looked up different legal trends surrounding the Me Too movement and had just kind of, listed a couple of ideas. When I met with Professor Metzmeyer, he was also able to give me some further recommendations and, in fact, suggested that I write about any changes in jury selection as a result of the Me Too movement. He had mentioned to me that that would be very interesting to trial lawyers, and that ended up being the topic that I settled on. And that's another thing that you want to remember while writing your note. Again, you want it to be a topic that you're passionate about, but you also want it to be a topic that will be relevant. So as you come up with topics, I would also really think about your audience. Who is going to be interested in reading this note? What kind of utility is it going to provide for them? Do you have an audience that you want to target? Make sure that you're writing a note that's not just something that you're interested in, but is something that other members of the legal profession, other state or municipal legislatures, or, other legal academics are going to be interested in.
So my note topic is about Title IX and sexual misconduct adjudication on college campuses. The way I found out about this topic was actually through my 1L summer job. The managing member was a higher education attorney, and at the time there were some proposed Title IX regulations, and he asked me to draft a sample sexual misconduct policy. The project ended up being about 60 to 80 hours, and a lot of that was very research intensive. One, I felt like I had a head start on the research given that I had work. Two, it was very interesting to me. And three, there is and was a lot going on with this topic. There were proposed regulations. There's a lot of lawsuits going on across the country involving both complainants and respondents suing the universities. It felt like a good topic to write about for the Law Review. I chose to focus on cross-examination for a couple of reasons. One, because it seemed like the most controversial kind of subtopic there. When you kind of dig into this area, there's a lot of different quote-unquote topics that you could write about, but people were pretty divided on cross-examination, and there was a lot out there being written as far as news and internet articles that I could pull from. when I was coming up with my resolution, I felt like my resolution was pretty creative for the problem that was presented. So that factored in as well.
My note was kind of uniquely situated in the sense that I had a lot of prior research. So I had to spend a lot of time doing more research on jury selection, that process, how jurors think, also the legal implications of the hashtag #MeToo movement. I started by going through and reviewing my initial research on the hashtag #MeToo movement. And if you're writing on something that you previously know about, which I highly recommend, it makes it a lot easier because you're coming from a place of knowledge and coming from a place of understanding. So there's a little bit less legwork to do. That being said, I did have to teach myself about jury selection. So after reviewing my research on the #MeToo movement, I immediately dove into learning more about jury selection. And I started by going to professors who I knew were knowledgeable on that subject. So I first visited Professor Leslie Abramson, who teaches some of our criminal procedure classes here at the university. And he actually recommended the books that would become sort of the fundamental text for my jury selection section. But what I also ended up finding out that in the process of doing the research, there was some research that I needed to do to inform myself as a scholar writing on the topic, and then there was the research that actually made it into the note. So I wrote an entire section on the process of jury selection, which was really important to my knowledge in terms of being able to write the note. But it turns out that research wasn't super important to my note topic itself. Even though I wrote an entire section based on research that I needed to do, that section ended up getting cut from the article altogether. So also be aware that in your research process, you're going to have to conduct research that just simply informs you as a scholar writing a note. That may not be research that ends up in your final product. Be prepared for your sections, for your paragraphs to be reformulated.
So I kind of had a 3-tier system for organizing my research. First was Lexis. So you really need to utilize the folders on Lexis. And you can do subfolders within the folders on Lexis. So that's really going to help you with your case law, with any law review articles or notes that you find on Lexis. If anyone didn't know, Lexis, you can access a lot of newspaper articles through Lexis. And so I had a folder dedicated for those. So things that might be behind a paywall if you find them on Google. So stuff like New York Times, the Washington Post, any kind of big newspaper publication like that might be blocked. You can oftentimes find it on Lexis. The second one was just your bookmark folder on whatever your preferred browser is. I used Google Chrome, so I had a folder that was like the title of my note, and I would bookmark whatever the URL was and save it into some of those subfolders. So it kind of is just a way for you to filter down. And then the last thing that I did was after I bookmarked some URL, say it's an article from higher education, inside higher education, I would copy and paste stuff from that article into a Word doc, just stuff that I thought I might use. I wasn't guaranteed to use it. I would copy and paste the URL into that Word document and then save the Word document some kind of title that I would think that I would remember what was in there. So that's really helpful for whenever you need to go back and find some kind of research article, or whenever you're trying to organize your research whenever you're about to write.
So coming from my master's program, a tip that I learned from the professors who taught my program was that when you're working in a certain subject area, in our case, when you're working in a certain body of the law, you're probably going to start with treatises or jurisprudence, or you're going to start with law review articles. And while you want to, read the body text to, get a sense of what you need to know, you also need to look through the footnotes of those sources. And what you'll see as you go through the footnotes of various law review articles or treatises or jurisprudence, you will start to find sources that are being cited over and over again. When you come across a source that is commonly cited, that's definitely something that you want to integrate into your law review note, because that probably means that well-cited source is a fundamental text for that body of law or that subject area that you're writing on. I would also say, don't be afraid to branch out in terms of the research engines you're using. In law school, I think we get very kind of focused on LexisNexis and Westlaw, but remember that you can also access the Ekstrom Library website and go to their databases link, and there are literally hundreds of academic databases that you can utilize as a University of Louisville student. And so apart from the Ekstrom Library website, I also wouldn't be afraid of using primary sources. So if you're someone who's doing a note topic that involves legislation, be prepared to look up legislative sources. But if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me or one of your other editors, and that's something that we can help you look up.
So number one best resource is just people. One, I had my note editor read every section of my note that I turned in. So after the background deadline, they should read your note regardless. But I really tried to stay on them and get feedback, and I met with her as well. When the analysis section was due, I didn't just turn in the analysis section, but I turned in background and analysis. I kind of okayed with her first, but she kept reading my paper, not just section by section, but as it continued to grow. So by the time I was turning in a final draft, my note editor had read it 4 or 5 times. And I did the same thing with the senior notes editor. I'm not going to put Katie on the spot, but our senior notes editor, whenever I was a first year member, was James McSweeney, and he sent out an email to all the first year members saying that if anyone wanted help or wanted him to read their notes, he was more than happy to do it. And what that really did was just provide another person who was going to be, a decision maker in the note publication process. It provided another outlet of feedback to me. Some other important people would be your advisor through the law review. That is kind of going to depend on the advisor. Maybe if you already have a relationship with that person, they might be willing to help you out more in the beginning. A lot of times they're there for once your paper kind of starts coming together, they can offer better feedback. Other good people are other trusted faculty members. So I had a good relationship with Professor Abrams, and I actually had found an article that she wrote that was kind of adjacent to my topic. So I had her read my paper, and I met with her a couple of times just to bounce ideas off of her. She was very helpful. Other friends in law school, it doesn't matter if they're on a journal or not, if they're willing to read your paper, I would encourage that. And even people who aren't in law school, I had my mom read part of mine, and I had my girlfriend read all of my note as well. And I think that's important because while you are going to be talking about some complex legal issues, some unresolved legal issues, a good law review note should, a layperson should be able to read that and tell you what the background was about, why the problem was important, what the problem was, what your resolution was, and why that resolution would work or why it made sense. So while you're going to be writing about complicated, complex issues, you should be able to be writing it in a way that someone outside of the law can understand it. Another one was Inside Higher Education. That is a online website specifically dedicated for higher education news. There might be some similar website for whatever topic you have. I would encourage you to go out there on Google and find something similar to that. Lastly, I would say the Texas Law Review Manual I think some people tend to ignore it. It really helped me with my grammar and punctuation. There's some certain rules that you may just forget even if you knew them, but it's a good reminder once you get towards the end of your note to kind of go through that and find the certain rules that you think may really help improve your paper. I would say the most challenging was research. For me, my note is very long. It ended up being like 50-something pages with the footnotes. So I had a lot of research, and part of that was because the topic that I chose included a lot of different areas that had to be researched. So research was challenging, mostly due to the amount that I had to do. Every good or great and publishable law review note is going to need thorough research. Depending on your topic, you might have more or less of these different sources, but your law review note is going to be focusing on case law, statutes, internet and newspaper articles. So there's going to be a lot of different sources that you can pull from, and you're going to need to pull from a lot of them. As well as you're going to have to cover both sides of whatever your argument or whatever your note topic is about. What's going to end up happening is you're going to need your own personal way to organize this research that best fits the way that you write, that you think, that you organize things. If you don't, and you don't start early, it will be chaotic, and you're going to spend a lot of time just trying to figure out where all of your research is. And in my opinion, anyone who makes it on the law review is probably a pretty good writer and probably a pretty good researcher as well. But in my opinion, your research and the depth and the breadth of your research is a good way for you to separate yourself. If one of your goals is to become published, it's a good way to separate yourself from other people. So I would really encourage people to start early, to look at different sources, and to come up with your own way to organize that research.
I would say that there were probably two really challenging aspects of writing my note. The first challenging aspect was writing about a topic that I didn't know a lot about. So I knew a lot about the Me Too movement, as I've said before, but I didn't know, hardly anything about jury selection. So I was really writing that aspect of my note from the bottom up. And that's why I recommend that when you're selecting a topic, pick something that you're familiar with. Even if there's an unfamiliar aspect, try to find something that you're familiar with so you're not starting at ground zero, and you can make it a little bit easier on yourself. Because I had a lot of doubt, writing about the jury selection process, whether I was informed enough to write about that. If you pick a topic that you're passionate about and you pick a topic that you already have some familiarity with, you really save yourself a lot of legwork and anxiety. The second challenging aspect of writing my note was the kind of collision of deadlines in the fall semester. When I was a first-year member, a rising third-year student, gave me the advice that I needed to start writing my note as soon as possible. And I kind of, neglected that advice. I was really busy during my summer law clerk program. I started writing my note probably in late August or September. I recommend that you start as early as possible. You don't want to be, in the middle of fall finals, preparing for the NPRE, balancing editing assignments and any other extracurricular activities you do, and just, pounding away at your note during, the late hours of the night. I would highly recommend at least having your introduction and your roadmap and, probably your background section completed, by the end of August if you can. So definitely try to hit the ground running, try to get this note written, because I, promise you, you're not going to have more time in the fall. I was completely blindsided when my note was chosen for publication. I had lived with my note for months by the time I got my offer of publication. And, really, I was so critical of it that, I just couldn't believe that I got such great feedback from our presiding editors. There were moments in the note writing process where I said, I just don't care anymore. I'm finished with this. I want to be done writing. I had to really work through some of those challenging moments. So getting the offer of publication really validated all that hard work I had put into the note. And it also, felt very promising for my academic career as a lawyer. I think in law school, we think so much about who we're going to be as practitioners. And we think about, who we're going to practice with, what area we're going to practice in, how we want our practice to look. We never think about the academic side of the law and the fact that many attorneys, go out into the world and begin practicing, but also have an academic dimension to their careers, whether that's, publishing legal blogs, publishing law review articles, teaching part-time at law schools, or even eventually migrating back to academia and becoming a law school professor. So writing a successful law review note can be really important to kind of building an academic presence or, building an academic career later in life. Getting the offer of publication was especially important to me because I am someone who wants to have an academic aspect to my career, and this really feels like the beginning of that in my practice.
It means a lot to me. I always knew that I wanted to get published. As soon as I was got on the law review, that was my main goal for my field year. I think I have various reasons for that. Getting good grades are really important, but being selected for publication on, especially the law review, since we are the flagship journal, carries a lot of weight. There are not very many people in your grade or in law school who get chosen for publication on any journal. It really is a great honor to have your work published. And you're going to be putting in a lot of time on this regardless if you want it to happen or not. It's a great reward, and it looks great on your resume. It's a little early, but if anyone is looking to try and be a clerk or a judicial intern for especially the federal court system, I think that is something that really is going to help you stand out whenever you're doing applications for those. But I was very excited, and it meant a lot to me. I put a whole lot of work into it. I would encourage everyone to strive for that because the better your note is, the better the law review is going to be. And the law review and the university kind of have a relationship where the ranking of the law review improves the law school, and the ranking of the law school improves the law review ranking. So if we're putting out good student notes that are citable, you're helping the law school, and in turn, when you're getting a degree from here, you're helping yourself. And then I have one extra tip: citations. So there are way more rules in the Blue Book than you thought there were, especially when you start getting into internet articles, non-traditional legal sources. So I would really treat those as if you were turning in a final copy. I know a lot of people would just keep writing and not, they wouldn't use id. I would just treat everything like you were turning it in right away. It may seem kind of repetitive as you cut and move stuff around, but it's really going to save you time in the long run once you're done with the final draft and you've been working for 8 months and you don't feel like going through 200 to 300 citations and making sure they're all right. I also think citations and having the best possible citations as far as correct form and following the rules is one of the other ways that your paper can really stand out once it's time to select notes for publication. One thing that would be helpful to keep in mind is that, we are the people who were chosen from on the editorial board and the people who would be chosen from your first year member class. A lot of times their notes are publishable. And what that means is that that's less work for you all and whoever is going to be first year members next year. So the better your citations are, the less work that you're going to have to do on an ESS. And that's something that's going to that's going to help you and weigh in your favor whenever you turn your note in and people are determining who should be chosen for a publication.
Again, if any of you have any questions or concerns, or you just need to vent about the note writing process, feel free to contact me. Don't be a stranger. You are welcome to send me a text message and say, hey, Sarah, I'm a first-year member, and, your video said that I could text you, and I will say, absolutely, let me know what you need. If you're more comfortable with email, feel free to reach out to me that way. Thank you all, and I look forward to reading your notes in the spring.
All right. Thank you, Seth and Sarah, for doing that for me and allowing me to splice up your videos into a video for all of us to watch. Okay, we're going to be hearing again from Professor Metzmeyer and also Erin Gao, who works in the library, about choosing your note topic.
Good morning. I'm Kurt Metzmeyer.
And I'm Erin Gao.
And today we're going to talk to you about starting a student note. A backwards way to define a note is by saying what it is not. It's not a brief. It's not a compilation of other people's work. It's not a mere digest of the law, although along the way you need to thoroughly examine, analyze, and discuss all the law on your topic. So what is it? It, and all good student notes, identify a problem, analyzes the current law, and offers an interpretation of the law or proposes changes in the law to resolve that problem. In other words, the student note writer takes on the role of a lawyer as problem solver in the form of a written paper. Okay, the legal stuff here. The student note will satisfy the writing requirement if it does a few things. First, it must involve significant legal research, organization, and analysis. Second, it also must be at least 6,250 words in length, exclusive of footnotes and endnotes. Third, it must have appropriate citations to authority. These writing requirements are not a law school requirement, although they may be required by law review. They are a law school requirement for a capstone graduation requirement as defined in the student handbook and as agreed to by the law school faculty. Let's talk about generating ideas for an interesting student note. Law review offers a unique opportunity in law school because you'll be able to write about any topic that you're interested in, not just the topics of a subject-specific seminar. However, the issue you pick or the solution you offer must be new. You'll hear later that it can't be preempted. That means a similar law review or student note can't be out there saying the same thing. But also, it's going to be more fun if it's new. So, how do you come up with something new to write about? Think about new legal developments, a new case that may change the law in unforeseen ways, or a new statute that will be interpreted and discussed for a long time. One way to look at a new statute is to compare it with the laws of other 50 states, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Another good topic idea is to come up with a new way to look at an issue that new events have brought to light. For example, as middle school and high school students become more politically active, what are the constitutional limits of school restraint on student speech and assembly? Yes, and I know there's some precedents from the 60s, but how would they play out almost 50 years later in 2020 with social media and other different ways of expressing oneself? Another thing would be a new social or technological issue and how the law can manage it. For example, should the law be changed so that social networks can be sued for rebroadcasting malicious libel? And I'm not going to talk about COVID-19, even though that is the perfect sort of thing for a law review article that I would normally talk about, because I think all the law professors out there that have been healthy at home for months have probably written every potential article that you can possibly think of on this topic. And you don't want to pick something that will start being published about the time you're turning in your topic and you'll have to change everything around. But that's the type of thing that you could think about. Wearable technology, other technologies that may in fact affect the law. It's important to know that research is part of the topic selection. It's not just a brainstorming process, although you will need to think about these things, pull out a pad and write down, take notes, and think about various topics. But you also need to test those topics by researching, at minimum, running searches across the law review databases of Westlaw and Lexis. Keep in mind, there are basically two things you need to have a really good note. Good topic idea, that's one of them, but you also need to get enough material to get to 6,250 words. By material, I mean cases, statutes, information about lawsuits that haven't hit the appellate courts yet, legal theories and law reviews, legislation, state, federal, even international. That data, and remember, you need to have enough in that stack of paper or in your Dropbox file folder to write over 6,000 words, could span jurisdictions within the United States and even internationally. And it could cross disciplines into areas like social science, medicine, and criminology.
Okay, so where do you look for ideas? A great way to start is to look at current awareness services. There are a lot of really good subject-oriented newsletters that discuss the latest laws, lawsuits, and cases. They're excellent because they tend to be topical. So if you know already that you want to write on a particular topic or subject area, but you haven't narrowed down exactly what your research question is going to be, then following a current awareness service can give you kind of an overview of what's under discussion in the field you're interested in. Bloomberg Law is an especially good source of newsletters. They offer newsletters on a wide array of topics, and they're especially good for business and labor law. If you don't already have a Bloomberg Law account, you can contact me directly and we can set one up. I'll also provide some information handouts about how you can reset your password if you already have an account. Once you have an account, you can just log in and sign up for as many newsletters as you want. And these will push out the latest updates directly into your inbox. Lexis and Westlaw, obviously both also have newsletters.
They're usually available on the specific topic pages, and you can either browse by topic or go to a topic-specific page in Lexis or Westlaw. So if one of these databases is already your research tool of choice, then signing up for their newsletters can kind of smooth the process so it's easy to follow up on research ideas that you've identified from the newsletter. A good way to start in Lexis, besides newsletters, is to look at the headlines in their legal news and their general news. You can access both of these from the main search bar when you log into Lexis, and you'll notice that by default, you'll search in all categories. But when you click that little drop-down arrow beside the all categories option, you can choose to search within just news or within legal news. Browsing the headlines can also give you a sense of the current issues that are still under discussion, what's been talked about a lot, and which issues haven't been settled, so there may be some space for you to come up with new ideas and really contribute to the discussion. In Lexis, you might also want to search legal news to find out about cases that you know are still ongoing in the courts. Cases that haven't been decided yet may indicate that there's an issue that's still up in the air, and you might be able to add some commentary. By default, when you run a search in Lexis, it usually brings back cases or maybe legislation, depending on how you've set up your account. But you can select legal news as the category in the drop-down box in that upper left-hand corner of your results page to filter your results and just see legal news. You don't need to know a case by name, but you can always search for an issue that you know is in the courts. So at the moment, it might be churches that are suing during coronavirus, for example, and you can see what's the legal news on those types of cases. If you aren't even sure what subject you want to write about, and you want a very general overview, you could also search for a specific legal news resource, like the ABA Journal or the National Law Journal, that can give you a really wide overview. Similarly, if you know there's a periodical that's key in the subject area you do want to work in, it could be worth searching for that title so you can browse through all the recent issues to see if it sparks any ideas. So to find a specific news source, you select the Find a Source tab at the bottom of the main search page on Lexis, and then you just type in your title, sort of like searching for a book in a library catalog. So Lexis also provides a lot of general news, and that's a good way to find stories that might have a legal angle that hasn't been tried or litigated yet. But the news category in Lexis covers a lot of newspapers from around the country with associated press articles and things like that. They aren't specifically focused on legal issues, but they often cover issues that have a legal component. Now, Westlaw obviously has similar news options to Lexis. You'll also find these on the main screen in Westlaw underneath that search bar. But unlike Lexis, Westlaw doesn't divide news from legal news. So you'll find both types bundled together. Once you click on the news category in Westlaw, you're brought to a general landing page that looks like this. This can be quite useful if you don't have any idea what subject you want to write about, because it shows you a wide variety of trending news. But if you have already settled on your subject area or your general topic, then you can select Topics in the right-hand menu on the Westlaw news page. And then you'll be able to search by topic if you have a specific area you're interested in, or you can browse through general topics. So for example, if you know you want to write about environmental law, but you haven't settled on a specific topic, maybe you're interested in watersheds or the EPA, you're not sure, then you can select the general Westlaw environmental topic and see what the legal news is in that area.
Another opportunity to find topics is the Bloomberg Law Circuit Split chart. A circuit split occurs in the federal courts when two or more federal circuit courts of appeals establish a different legal rule for that circuit. So the different circuits have different legal rules. If the issue that those rules deal with have a national scope, the United States Supreme Court will eventually have to step in because corporations that are national or individuals that are dealing with things nationally can't deal with having a different law in different parts of the country. For example, if the Ninth Circuit rules that social media giants are immune from libel suits, but the Sixth Circuit finds that they aren't, you can bet that Mark Zuckerberg's lawyers are running to the Supreme Court. That often makes a great topic for a paper, especially if you love federal law and procedure. On the front page of your Bloomberg Law account, look down at the bottom at the circuit split charts to find the currently available topics that have circuit splits. Okay, once you've got a good topic, now you have to go out there and make sure that you have plenty of material to talk about. One good way to bring together a lot of material, especially if the topic you've picked is about state law, is to see what all the other states are doing. And to research this best, you'll want to look at the 50-state surveys. Now, Westlaw and Lexis have 50-state surveys, and they are good, but they're rather general. For example, if you look up murder, you may find the murder statutes, but if you're looking for something more specific like felony murder, you won't find the states that have felony murder specifically in their state codes. So I think a better place to look for more narrow topics and a broader view of the law is the Hein Online subject compilation of state laws. It's available under Hein Online on the Law Library's webpage under electronic resources. What makes them better is they collect all kinds of materials that discuss state law. They also cover federal law too, and can help you find circuit splits and other things like that too. And they cover everything from statutes and regulations to case law, whereas Westlaw and Lexis usually only cover statutes and regulations. They also have more diverse topics and aren't as narrow in their coverage. Another way to find more material for your note and to fill out your paper with thoughtful content is to put the legal issue you're talking about into its larger legal context. And the context generally broader than the law. U of L's Ekstrom Library has a number of interdisciplinary resources arranged into subject guides. So if you're looking at a question having to do with charter schools, for example, you could search resources in education scholarship to figure out the background of charter schools and then bring that into your study of the law. Moreover, and I said I wasn't going to talk about COVID-19, but I guess I am, if you were looking at a topic having to do with the coronavirus, you could look at medical journal articles to bring that into your analysis. Now, just keep in mind that reference librarians in the law library are as knowledgeable about resources at other university libraries So if you're having trouble negotiating these sources, just ask a librarian. Another thing you could do is go into the legislative history of a statute you're talking about. Now, this is a whole other 30-minute presentation, but if you know you're focusing on a statute, you should know the basic history of that statute. I would suggest you set up a conference with a librarian to get directed to specific resources for such research. So if you're looking at Kentucky, we can point you in one direction. If you're looking at Indiana, we can point you to another. If you're looking at a federal statute, we can point you to other resources. Both I or Professor Hilliard can help you with both state and federal material, and Professor Gao can certainly help you with electronic resources in this area. This summer will be available by phone, email, or video chat, but maybe one day we'll be available for a face-to-face discussion.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to hear from our favorite resident Lexus rep, Colby. Unfortunately, if we were in person, we would have been getting Chick-fil-A today, but he's promised a rain check. So have no fear. And let's listen to Colby about note preemption.
Hello, everyone. This is Colby Kushreza, your research attorney with LexisNexis. And I just wanted to come to you today first to say congratulations on being selected for Law Review. Being on Law Review is a great honor, and I wanted to take a moment to, if you haven't been told already, to say congratulations. I was on Law Review when I was a law student, and have had the great privilege of working with Law Review students over the last several years. And I'll say that employers love Law Review students. That's some of the main thing they look for on resumes, mainly because you bring 3 big skills to the table. You get additional training through your law review process in research, in writing, and in citation. And law review is a lot of work, but it can be a lot of fun too. And so I just want to say again, congratulations, and I'm excited to be part of your start in your law review journey. Even though it has to be virtually or remote, I'm still excited to be part of that and to help you get started. So I'm here today to talk about note topic selection. And so the first thing that I want to just start from the outset is just to generally go over what is a note. So your editors will discuss this in more detail, but a note is a paper, scholarly paper that you're going to be writing for journal. Has a certain page requirement or a certain word count requirement, and it is a piece where you're going to advocate for something. This is an opposition to a show and tell piece where you're basically just giving an overview of the state of the law. That's not what a note topic is. A note topic is where you're going to be arguing for something or advocating for something or discussing some controversy and taking a position on what the change should be. So that's always nice to know from the outset. So as we discuss potential options for selecting and researching note topics, you can kind of get in the mindset of what it is you're going to be looking for. So I prepared a handout, which you should have, and if not, your editors will be providing it to you shortly, that is going to allow you to recreate all of these steps on your own, whether it be tonight or next week or next month, whenever you're in the process of really heavily starting to search. So you have something to go by, in addition to this video, that you can use as you select your own note topic. So the handout will be really helpful. And we want to start today by talking about how we can research potential topics. And for most people, this is the most difficult part of writing a note topic, is just finding what is something that I actually want to write on and will be happy writing on. And so it really starts with exploring what topics are available. And so I usually find at this point people fall in one of 3 categories. I have the people on one extreme, and there's usually just a couple of those that really know already exactly what they want to write about. And then on the other extreme, the people who are saying, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, I'll never find out what I want to write on. And then most people which fall in the middle, which say, well, I'm really interested in contracts, or I did really well in torts or civil procedure, or I worked for a family law firm this summer. And those individuals maybe want to explore more on the topics that they have an interest in. So no matter if you're on the extreme end of the spectrum, one of the two extremes, or you're in the middle, I've tried to come up with some options for you to find a topic that'll be right and work for you. So number one on the handout talks about finding a topic. So under Explore Content here on Lexis Advanced main screen, so once you log in your Lexis account, you come down to Explore Content, and we want to come over here to Find a Topic, all right? Find a Topic. And once you click on that, you'll have lots of different legal topics that come up. If we click, let's say, maybe we're interested in education law. If we select education law, it's going to open up lots of different subtopics under education law. And let's say maybe we're interested in faculty and staff issues. We can click on that one, and lots of different options come up, subtopics under faculty and staff. All right, so let's maybe say we're interested in freedom of speech issues. All right, even more subtopics under that. But let's say we're generally interested in learning more about faculty and staff freedom of speech. So if we click on that, it's going to do the search for us without having to do any search on Lexis Advanced. We've already organized freedom of speech for faculty and staff. And at this point, I'm really interested in looking at 3 different types of content: secondary materials, news, and legal news. And I'm going to start with legal news, because at this point, I'm wanting to see, are there any hot button issues on freedom of speech for faculty and staff? So you can come over here to the right-hand side, and you can do it by a date, newest to oldest, to organize them. And you'll see that here there are several in the recent days that talk about freedom of speech for faculty and staff. All right. So I would start looking at some legal news stories, and then maybe go into news, and then maybe even secondary materials to learn more. So I would spend some time just browsing different legal topics or subtopics to see what is out there, what controversies or legal disputes or legal issues may be available for me to take and think about what I could turn into a potential note topic. So that's the first place I would start. The second thing that I would do is I would go to Law 360. So you may have used Law 360 before, you may be new to it, but up here under the top left, you have your product switcher. And one tool that's available is Law 360. All right. So I want to mention that Law 360 is the leader in legal news. So all of my firms have Law 360. All of the AmLaw 100 firms, all of the law schools now across the country have Law 360 as part of their account. And this is a news bureau that is part of LexisNexis. And they write legal news stories every weekday and publish them on our online website. And it's very popular among attorneys and law faculty, and it's really a go-to resource that you should start utilizing. So here on the main page, you can access it. You can also get to it directly by going to law360.com. All right. I put that, I think, on the handout here. And I do want to mention that this website is IP authenticated. So that means that it only works when you're on the U of L campus. All right. Now, there's a workaround to that, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. But keep that in mind. If you're at home or at work, you're trying to get on Law 360, when you click into these articles, it's only going to give you a preview. All right. I'm signed in with my training ID up here. You don't have a sign-in specifically. So when you're on the U of L network, it automatically signs in and you have all the access that you need. But if not, I'll show you a workaround in just a moment. So generally, Law 360 works much like a newspaper website. You have the breaking news on the top. You have the trending articles. You have expert analysis on the right-hand side. Up at the top, you can actually organize by practice area. So if you're interested in employment legal news, you can click on that. We have the top employment legal news of the day here. All right. You can access those and take a look at them. The nice thing is that if there's any related documents, we often will link them over here along with other related materials on the law firms or related companies. You also have the ability to sign up for newsletters. So if you come up here up to the top left and you come down, we have it's up here at the top. We have a newsletter sign up. All right. Put in your email address and you can select one or more newsletters. All right. And then just select sign up now. And usually it sends you one email a day, usually around 6 in the morning, and you can access and read the legal news of the day. Keep in mind, if you're at home and you get the newsletter and click on the link in the newsletter, it's going to bring you to the Law 360 site. And that doesn't work unless you're on the U of L campus. All right. So this is a great tool to be able to research what are key legal news articles being discussed for all different practice areas. We have over 60 different practice areas here. And then we have also different jurisdictions that are available. You can see on here, Massachusetts, Native American, that you can access as well. So let's say that maybe you are not on campus and you're wanting to access some Law 360 materials. If we come back to Lexis Advanced to our main page, you can actually go to your search bar and type in Law 360, and where it says legal news, click on that. All right. This is the workaround if you're going to be off campus. Okay. And then under actions, get all documents for this source. All right. This is going to give you the Law 360 legal news articles. All right. And so we've already imported the ones in from today, which when I'm filming this is June 11th. And they usually import them around 11 a.m. For the day. They put all of the ones that are on Law 360 here into Lexis Advanced. The only disadvantage is you don't have the attached documents on the right-hand side, and you just have the actual news story in Lexis format. But if you're wanting to access Law 360 off campus, this is a nice workaround option. All right. So that is Law 360, and that is a really great tool, and one of the tools that students tell me that help them the most when they're trying to find a topic. The next resource that I want to talk about, which is number 3, is called Emerging Issues Reports. So if I come here on Lexis Advanced on your main page and type in 2020 Emerging Issues and do a search, we publish under Secondary Materials. You have to come here to Secondary Materials. Emerging Issues Reports, different ones every year, all right? And they talk about different legal topics under certain practice areas. So here's one on coronavirus tax relief. So if we click on that one, it'll give you details on the emerging issue for coronavirus tax relief. So we have 10 of these so far this year. You may also look back at some of the ones for 2019. But these are also another resource to find what are some key legal issues that you might want to explore. So I would definitely recommend that as another tool. So the fourth thing on the list are cases of first impression. So a lot of law students will want to write on the first time that a state or a jurisdiction is hearing a certain type of controversy or dispute. And that's going to be when a case is, of course, a case of first impression, first time it's been heard. And so I get a lot of questions, how do I find those on Lexis? And so the easiest way, which I know on your handout, is to type in first impression, all right, in your search bar and do a search, okay? All right. And then we want to maybe filter by timeline because we just care about ones that are more recent, talking about recent controversies or recent cases. So under timeline, I can type in here, let's say one's 2019 to present, last year and a half, and do okay. All right. And then from this point, we can do ones that are search within results. So let's say we're interested in ones that talk about sex discrimination. All right, any cases of first impression that deal with sex discrimination. And so here we've got 28 cases. All right, we can, if we wanted to narrow by jurisdiction or by court, there's 2 here for Kentucky. We wanted to just look at Kentucky, but this mentions first impression and sex discrimination in the last year and a half. So a lot of people will pick cases of first impression and they'll do some analysis or they'll advocate that the court got it right or got it wrong, or maybe give a different approach to how the court could interpret it, or make some predictions about how the court's finding will be applied in future cases. So lots of room to go in this direction, but lots of people will want to look at cases of first impression, and now you know how to do so. The other fairly common thing that students will want to research are going to be circuit splits. So basically, if the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals disagree, you have a disagreement, and that case would be one that might be likely to go up to the U.S. Supreme Court when there's a split between two circuits on the same area of law or the same topic of law, for the Supreme Court to issue a ruling to work it out, to figure out who's right and who's wrong, what circuit got it right and what got it wrong. So lots of students will want to know, how do I research circuit splits between two different circuits? So I'll put on the handout, the easiest way to do this is to do circuit within 3 words of split or disagree, and then do your search, okay? Next, you want to select your Cases tab. Mine already defaults there. And then under Court, I'm going to select Federal Jurisdiction, U.S. Federal Jurisdiction, all right? And then we can do Timeline, okay? So we can do our timelines 2019 to present, or we can even do 2020 to present. See what's out there. All right, so 800 cases here. All right, so maybe we want ones even that deal with employment-related issues. All right, 436. So we could look here, or we could maybe even filter a little more. But these are the ones that are talking about some level of circuit split and employment. We could actually come over here and we could do newest to oldest and look at the newest ones. But that is a general way you can start doing some examination of circuit split. So we could even come up here where it says employment and discrimination. All right, 103. So the more specific you get, the more relevant and on-point return results, usually a more specific return result subset. All right, so that's circuit splits. The last topic finding idea that I wanted to point out are 50-state surveys. And 50-state surveys are really awesome. They give you the breakdown of the law in all 50 states. And so if you come here to your search bar and type in 50-state surveys, it comes up here as a source. I just got to click on it, and it will open up my 50-state surveys table of contents. So we have lots of 50-state surveys. I think there's a few hundred of these on here. They're organized by area of law. So let's say you're interested maybe in healthcare law. You can click on that, and you can see the different options that we have under each of the healthcare law areas. So if I clicked on the one for pharmacists and pharmacies, we can click on that. And this was last updated on June of 2018, okay? It gives you the federal overview. You come down, it gives you the state overview, and then it gives you state-by-state information for all 50 states, all right? So this is a really great resource if you're trying to find out the law in another state, or you're trying to maybe make some comparisons as part of what you're advocating or what you're arguing. I would come and look to see maybe if we have a potential 50-state survey, okay? So one really nice thing that I'm going to do, since I miss you guys so much, is if you email me a 50-state survey, pick any one of them out that you like, and email it to me by July 1st, by the end of the day on July 1st, I will put you in the drawing for 2 $50 Amazon gift cards. Okay, e-gift cards, I'll email them to you. So to email it to me, if you come up here to the little email button, all right, all you have to do is put in my email address, all right, colby.kushreza@lexisnexis.com, and then here in this box, put in Susie Q for Louisville Law Review, all right, put your first and last name, Louisville Law Review, and then submit it to me. You have to put your name here or I don't see who it comes from. So please put that. Email it to me by the end of the day, July 1st, and whoever emails them will put their name in a hat, and 2 people will get the e-gift cards, 2 $50 Amazon e-gift cards. What's better than that, right? Okay, so now let's move on really quickly to our second topic, which is going to be preemption. So now we went over some options to kickstart the process of getting to look for a topic. One thing I want to briefly go over is preemption. So preemption means that this topic, whatever topic it may be, has already been written on before. We say that topic would be preempted. And you cannot write on a topic if it's preempted. All right? So the process is doing a preemption check and letting me help you do that to make sure that your topic has not already been written on and published. All right? So if someone has written an article that is similar to yours and it has basically the same topic, basically the same argument, and reaches basically the same conclusion, we call those the three same. Same topic, same argument, same conclusion. That would be preempted. And so you would need to find another topic. So what we want to do is we want to be able to do searches that identify what's already out there based on your potential topic so that you don't get down the road of researching and starting to write on something that was published last year at the University of Alabama and somebody's already beat you to that. All right. So I put on your handout an example, all right, that you can do. And it's one dealing with social media and hiring. All right. So an example of how we would do one would be social media or social networking and employer and applicant or candidate, and to do a search. Okay. Now from this point, we would want to go to secondary materials. And then we would want to go under category, law reviews and journals. Okay. And then maybe if we're going to talk about discrimination, okay, making a discrimination argument, we could do that. And we can even do with our timeline here, the last 5 years, all right, 2015 to present. Most journals require a 5-year look back. I'll let your editors tell you if they want you to do differently. But here we've got it down. It's about 1,300. So you can see there's a lot of materials that talk about this. So what I would do at this point is I would sit down with you and we would try to come up with ways to narrow your topic so that we are able to get it to return results around 100. It is not always possible to do that, but we want to get it lower, hopefully, than 1,375. So on the handout, I put my email address, and I'm happy to meet with you in person, if we're allowed to do that, or virtually. I can share my screen, and you and I will work on it together. Average one takes about 15, 20 minutes, and I'll help you sit down and do a check. So that way you make sure that what you're looking for is correct, that you have a good search that encompasses your search terms and your topic, and that you've made sure that you've done a detailed, comprehensive preemption check. What we just did on the screen was a basic one, but the results are too large. And so this is when students will run into issues and they'll contact me and we'll help hopefully narrow it down to something that is more manageable to look through. So once we get it down to 100, 150 results, and you'll look through those, and just to make sure that no one has already written on what you're wanting to write on. All right, same topic, same argument, same conclusion. All right, so that's preemption. So I'll put my email. I'm happy to sit down with you and do a preemption check. This is kind of the general process, but it's always good to have a second set of eyes so that you don't get caught later by the editor or faculty advisor having written on something that's already been put out into the academic sphere a year or year and a half ago. All right, so the third and final topic is on alerts. So after you've done a search, and it's a pretty good search that you're interested in, you feel that it's a good search that encompasses your topic, it's good to set an alert. So at the top of every search, you can create an alert, all right? You can title the alert. You've got your search terms here. You can set up for it to monitor it. And you can set how often you want it delivered and if you want it emailed to you and if you want to share it with anybody. And you can set an alert. So if you're going to be doing your topic on social media and employment discrimination, if you're going to write on something like that, if something new comes out, a law review, a case, a news article, you're able to customize alerts. So if instead of doing secondary materials, if I came here and I wanted to do legal news, I could also set an alert for that. And on the monitor button, notice that it's going to also let me do legal news, but I can do secondary materials too. I can also do cases if I wanted to. All right, same search terms, but different content types. And then I can create my alert. All right. If you want to be able to find your alerts, you can go more and then alerts, and that's where all your alerts are going to be saved on the Lexis platform. As I showed you when we went through the alert, setting it up, under the delivery, you can have it emailed to you and even put in a different email if you don't want it sent to your primary email. All right, so you can do that. So once you find a topic or one that you're pretty sure you want to go with, let me help you, and we often will do it during the preemption check. Set an alert. So if new things come out, you can be updated and work that into your note topic. All right. The last couple things, I put my contact info on here, my phone number and my email. So if you need help, want a preemption check, want some advice, I'm happy to work with you one-on-one. We'll set up a time. The last page are just some tips that we at Lexis have learned from working with thousands of law review students over the last many years. And so I'll leave that to you to read and soak in. Those are some really important tips as you go through finding a topic and researching a topic to keep in mind. Some things I think will save you a lot of trouble in the long run if you read those, understand them from the outset. So with that being said, that concludes my presentation. Don't forget to email me.
Okay, sorry for the delay. So now is the time that we've cut out to take our little 15-minute break. So get up, stretch, get some coffee. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put a countdown on the screen so you'll be able to check pretty quickly when we're going to start back again. Let me just explain what's coming up next. So if you look at your agenda, you'll know that your breakout sessions are going to be next. So I'm going to use Blackboard, and I'm going to split everyone up into their teams. So you should drop into your room with your editors, and then they will proceed with the rest of your training, which will involve some interactions. I hope you're ready to. I know no one likes to turn on their cameras or turn on their mics on these things, but you'll have the best experience possible if you at least interact with your editors and your team members. And then after that, so the senior editors will be dropping in to different teams just to see where you're at and answer any questions you have. And then we'll come back together and we just have a couple final thoughts about permalinks, which is a new thing that we're doing for this volume. And also April is going to explain more about the change in the writing requirement that is also brand new to this year. So there'll just be some more information after your breakout sessions, but we're just going to dive in. So let's hope this works.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, Kristen and I live together, so we figured it would just be easier if we sat next to each other and kind of talked to you all.
So I'm going to leave my screen off and my sound off so it doesn't echo so bad, and we're just going to tag team from Allie's computer.
How's everyone doing? Does anyone have any questions so far? Any random things? Yeah.
They mentioned, so you keep like an update tab if new research comes out in your field. If something comes out during our note writing process, do we have to start from ground zero? How does that work?
Not necessarily. So hopefully like the way you've chosen your note will be that if something did come up, you could maybe just like alter your resolution to where it wouldn't be the exact same anymore. So the whole like, does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically you just can't have the same resolution as somebody else, so you might have to alter your resolution, but you usually don't have to like totally change topics if you want to. I know too, like if you're really far along and you find out like a week before it's due that like someone else has the same exact conclusion, topic, whatever, usually they probably won't make you start over, but they're just going to kind of tell you that you're not going to be published because you can't publish the same thing twice, if that makes sense. But it's not like if a day before you find out someone has the same thing as you, they're going to make you start from ground zero. That was a good question, though. Does anyone else have any questions before we get started? Nope.
Is everyone in, I think?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and just start then with our breakout stuff. We can introduce ourselves. I'm Allie, and this is Kristen. I know some of you all, but I haven't met others. Dan, do you want to kind of hop on?
Yeah, sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name's Dan Campano. Know some of you, I think actually all three of us, Kristen and Ali and I, were SSG leaders, so you probably saw us around, the 100 class and everything. I think I have at least one person in here from my SSG, so hi, Anthony. Shout out to our SSG group. So I'm your notes editor for Team 2. So the way law review works is you're broken up into 3 teams. So it's like smaller group setting, and you get to work, amongst your team in kind of a smaller group on the law review. And all of us on Team 2 are going to be working on the same note and the same article. And we'll kind of like explain more about it, but I'm the notes editor. So I'm looking forward to a good year.
Yay. I guess I don't know, I'm the articles editor, and then Kristen will be your symposium editor. So I feel like all of that will kind of make a little more sense once we start talking about kind of the points we're about to hit. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, so I think I'm going to kind of go ahead and start. So like Ali said, I'm Kristen. I'm your symposium editor. Symposium is kind of down the road. We'll learn a lot more about that when it gets a little bit closer, once they figure out how exactly it's all going to be done. Fingers crossed so we can have the conference in person and everything goes okay, but we'll worry about that later. The thing that we're going to talk about is Microsoft Teams. So we use Microsoft Teams to communicate with you all, to upload your assignments. That's where you'll upload your finished assignments. Has everyone used Microsoft Teams before, or no? No. Okay.
So
is there like a way to like screen share? Like, can we show them how to use it?
Have you guys downloaded it yet? Have they taught you all about downloading Microsoft Teams and gotten you set up with that yet? If not, it's okay. They'll probably do it later.
I don't know if they have downloaded it now.
Okay, well, we'll just kind of give an overview. It's really easy to work, but that's kind of what you're going to be using later on. So I'm sure April and Katie will give you guys information on how to use that.
And there is also a calendar feature on Microsoft Teams, so you'll be able to see all your upcoming assignments and due dates, which is nice. So make sure you keep up with the calendar and check, because you don't want things to sneak up on you, because then that's when they become a pain in the ass when you wait till the last minute. So just make sure you stay up to date with that. When are we supposed to show them how to get in? I don't think so. Okay, well, when we do the whole Microsoft Teams thing, like you log in with your school email, and then you'll see on the side left, it will say Teams, and we're Team 2. So like you click on your team, and then it will have like different like folders that will tell you, like it will say like assignments, posts. It will make much more sense when you see it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but once we get into Microsoft Teams, once you all get in there, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I had no idea what was going on in the beginning of law review, so honestly, you can ask me just about any question. I will not judge, because I was so lost for like the first month or so. Like, it's kind of an adjustment to figure it all out, but once you do, it's easy. But don't hesitate to ask any questions in the beginning, because I was lost myself. Yeah. Okay, so I guess next we're going to talk about just the basic difference between a note versus an article. So I know they kind of talked about your notes. So obviously a note is written by students. That's what we've been talking about, like, finding the research topic for your note. And then an article is usually written by like a professor or some sort of other scholar. So articles are a great source for your note, looking up information and sources. And when we do our assignments, so you'll have notes to edit and you'll have articles to edit. So notes are written by the students. So like, I know me and Allie's, both our notes are being published, so I don't think y'all will get them, but like someone, like one of the teams will edit our notes. Like, so you will be editing other notes from law review members that are being published. And so for that, you just do like the citations and basic like grammar checks. And then you have article assignments. Not only do you have to do the citations and like the grammar part, you have to find their sources. So using their citations, you have to find the source and then highlight in the source, like what they're referencing. So we have to like show that what they're saying actually relates to that source and is actually coming from that source. So the articles take a little bit longer. They're usually spread out. Like your sources will be due one day and then your citations will be due another day. And then also, like, if you go to a citation and there is no source, if you go to a footnote and there's no citation, then you have to find a source for what they're talking about. So the articles require a little more research to do, but usually it's pretty easy. Usually if you just like put in to Google whatever their sentence is saying, you can find a source for it. And it doesn't have to be like word for word, like it can kind of be like a source that's like paraphrasing basically what they're saying. Like, you don't have to find a direct citation, but you do have to find something that can at least be put down as a source for whatever they're saying in their article.
So does anyone have any questions about notes versus articles? Because I know it can be kind of confusing, so ask whatever. No?
I feel like a lot of questions don't come up until you get your first assignment and then you're looking at it and you're like, What the hell is this and where do I even begin? So like I said, me, Dan, and Allie are all very approachable, more than willing to help. Like, please feel free once you get it if you need help with it, because.
And we'll start we'll have a group chat too, and we'll have a group chat on Teams, so you guys will like be able to ask us questions there too and collaborate with one another and see some answers to your questions. So, but if you guys have anything, like, feel free to interrupt us. Just raise your hand on this thing and we'll chat. So,
and then so I forgot to mention, when you're doing your article sources, like I said, make sure you highlight the information that's that they're citing in their article. And then, so you're going to have to upload all those sources to Teams. So you'll upload them into a folder, and for each source, you should upload it in a PDF if you can. Sometimes you find a few sources that won't do a PDF version, but you're supposed to upload it as a PDF. And then you name the source, like the footnote that it corresponds with. So it'll be like FN period 2. And then you kind of put like the beginning title of the name, like as much as you can fit, that it will let you like upload, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure that when you upload your sources, you're showing which citation it corresponds with.
Okay. So next we'll move on to kind of the ESS sheet. this is where you will complete your assignments for our note, for articles, and for symposium articles. So this is going to be what you turn in each time you're completing an assignment. And I wish I had screen share to be able to show this to you all, but I do not. So I don't think I do, or I just don't know how to work it. Anyways, so I'll send this to you guys maybe over email so you can kind of get a better look of what the ESS sheet that you're going to be turning in looks like. But basically, excuse me, basically it's just a document and you're going to put your name on it. It'll have the due date for when you're supposed to turn it in. And you're going to have to put in all of the footnotes that you're trying to complete. So basically, there's going to be a reason and authority section and a comment section for each footnote. So you're going to copy and paste the footnote from the article or note above, and then you're going to make your edits down below that. So if you don't have any edits or the source was completely fine as is, you're just going to put no changes. And then in the reason and authority section for why you put no changes, you're going to list every single Blue Book rule that corresponds with that footnote. So say you have, say you have a budget that's like a PDF that you found online. So the rule in the Blue Book, it would be Rule 15.1. So you're going to go look up the PDF online source rule, and you're going to write per Rule 15.1. This states that titles of institutional authors should be capitalized, or whatever the corresponding rule is. Basically, we just want to see evidence for why you made changes, you didn't make changes, and exactly where you're getting this information from. So, I'm not sure. What did I just do?
For our first few members, you got emailed your first ESS by me last night. So this is the document that Allie's talking about. I think Kristen's going to try to pull it up here.
Really trying. I don't know what you all can see. Okay, wait. What am I looking for first? ESS. Okay, wait. Let me go to one that's already done.
This will help a lot. Okay, here we go. So this is what it looks like. This is one that we completed last year.
This is an old one.
Okay. So basically, let's start up top. Okay. So up top, first thing you have to do is a note. So for this, Dan's going to send you out your ESS document, and he's going to have split up what you're responsible for. So say one person is responsible for editing footnotes 2 through 18, and they are responsible for grammar checking pages 1 and 2. So you know those are the footnotes you need to be looking at when you pull up the note that say we get footnotes.
One quick note about the pages you're assigned to check for errors. Try to remember, obviously you need to read them, check for any grammar, any glaring errors, but you're not trying to change their wording. It's still their, if a sentence makes absolutely no sense, and maybe circle it or say something, but you're not trying to rewrite their paper or change their tone, if that makes sense. If you're trying to more check for just basic grammar errors. Okay, so then you'll see how there's the footnotes assigned, and it's all the different footnotes. And then when we scroll down here, you'll see you put your name, the due date, the number of hours you worked on it. Since this is a note that she was working on, there's no source hours, so it's just the editing hours. And then you get to the footnotes, and so you put footnote number and then the page number it was on. You copy and paste exactly how the footnote looks, how the citation looks, and then you do your edits below. Yeah, all that.
So if this is kind of where I was saying, say this footnote, everything was right with it. You would just write in this member edit, no changes. And we're going to go over a few together. Dan's going to lead us through that in a second, but this is just kind of an example. So then you get to the rule or the reason and authority for changes. So everyone kind of does this a little bit differently. The way I did it was I would put all of my rules kind of in the reason and authority with all of the comments. And then when I got to my comment section, if I found something that like maybe didn't make sense to me or I wasn't sure on the rule, or I was like, I think this is right, but like maybe double check this part, I would write that there. So that's kind of what the comment section is really for. I don't know if that was done right on this particular example we have pulled up, but that's kind of how you'll do that. So Dan, if you want to, I guess you can jump into the footnotes that we're going to go over together if you want to tackle that.
Do you want me to show them how to use Microsoft Teams really quick, since now I've figured out?
Yeah, if you want to show that.
Okay, so here's Microsoft Teams. Oh, let's see it. So basically, you'll come in here and you'll click on Teams or Team 2. So you'll click on Team 2, and then there's nothing like posted in here yet, but like you'll go to Files. And then here's like where you find your assignments. So say we have like a note editing assignment. So that's your first one. So you'll click on it. You need to go to the ESS. Download it. And so this is the form you'll fill out. Also, when you're doing these, make sure when you go to your note editing assignments, make sure you do like the edited one. Does that make sense?
Right. So it's going to be I emailed it out last night. So easiest way is to just check your email. But if you go on Teams, it's the documents that have my name beside them is the ones you should be using.
Yeah. So this is where you'll find all your assignments, everything you need to do when you are working on your note and you have to upload like assignments for your note. That's where you'll do it in the note progress folder. And so if you go back to like the post tab, like that's where we'll type things to you all, write reminders, stuff like that. And then like I said, there's also the calendar section that will have your all's stuff on there. It's my calendar uploaded, but your assignments will be there. That's about it. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry, I know we're kind of like all over the place, and this is weird over Zoom or Blackboard, so just ask whatever. Yeah, we can send you a couple example completed ESSs. I think those can be very helpful, and I think ours did that last year, so we'll for sure send some of those over.
Yeah, we're going to go through a couple of footnotes too. So hopefully that'll make a little more sense, but we can definitely send you one we did last year. The format's going to be a little different, but it'll be helpful. So we can do that.
So
I think Dimitri had
should we already have our stuff up in Teams? Should it kind of look like that, like y'all said it, or like y'all showed? Or cause
I think Katie and April should be setting that up for you guys. I'm not sure why we don't have that link set up yet, but I'm sure that you'll so you're going to make a Teams account and then they'll give you like the login for the law review stuff, I think. So don't worry about getting that stuff just yet. We'll make sure you guys have all of that stuff.
Cool.
So.
And Dan, yeah, I got your email yesterday, so I'll just work on that. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, and then Brandon asked what the number of footnotes added column means. So that's a good question. I don't think we went over that. So basically, we're going to look through notes and articles and read the source. And if we think that, say if someone makes an assertion in their note, but they didn't cite it, they just said it was their own thought or something, but we think that they probably used a source to get that information, we're going to say, oh no, you need to put a footnote there because we don't want them plagiarizing any works. So basically, number of footnotes added is where what Kristen was saying, you're going to need to go online, find a source that corresponds with whatever that person was trying to say, and then create a footnote for it. So usually there aren't too many of added footnotes. Usually articles editors and notes editors and everyone writing the notes and articles are good about citing their sources, but every once in a while a couple of those do come up. So if you have any questions when that happens, we can probably explain it a little bit better and help you through that as well.
Usually too, when you're editing a note and there's an articles or an added footnote in the note, usually it's coming from the same source that's like was the last source cited. Mm-hmm. They just need to like put an id or something they need to add to it. So usually for notes, it's not hard to like add the citation. It's usually articles when you have to really do some like research to find a citation for it. But usually when you have an added blank footnote with a note, it's usually just the citation before. Yeah, Tyler.
So we're checking citation accuracy. Are we also checking whether the authority is like understated or overstated and making comments on that?
No.
Oh.
I don't think.
What do you mean by that?
Tyler, are you there?
I think we lost him.
His computer might have froze. Mine was doing that earlier.
Are we frozen right now? Our screen?
No, y'all aren't.
No, you're.
Okay, cool. Because it looked like it.
Yeah, I think we might have lost him. Yeah.
I don't exactly know what that means, but my answer is just no because I don't really.
I think he may be referring to like if they put like the direct citation, but really it's kind of more of like a C or a C generally, something like that. So I would say, yeah, probably check those, but it doesn't come up very often. I think he's.
And that's a good point. Like for your articles, if you find a source, but it's not exactly saying what you need it to say, like you can write C generally, and then the source, like I said, you don't have to have it like word from word coming from some sort of source. Yeah, Dimitri.
What are like big errors that come up a lot, or stuff that we should look for when we're going through the notes, editing? Anything?
It's kind of a variety. It's really just based on the Blue Book rules, so just kind of being careful and making sure you're checking every little rule in the Blue Book. Mm-hmm. And don't worry, it takes a little bit in the beginning to get used to the Blue Book and comfortable with the rules, but as you go on, you'll start to like pick up on little things that like might not be right, and just really double checking those rules and citing your reasons for why you think something's right or wrong that's gonna just be the best way to do it.
I'm going to go over the Blue Book necessary and do an example, so that might kind of help too. If you
yeah, and the examples from like your first assignment that I sent out last night, I'm going to show you a couple of things because the most popular source is an internet source, and there are a couple of things to look for. And in the footnote examples that I have picked out, you're going to see a couple of common mistakes. A lot of it is like whether something should be italicized or whether it should be in all caps or small caps. So there's just like little things like that to look for. But when we do an example, this is all going to make a lot more sense. And you're going to see like a couple of common mistakes. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, because I didn't know how to do the small cap stuff and different things.
Yeah, I can show you how to do that too.
All right, thanks.
DJ?
I just want to say that there are, if you go to the Pro Legal Boards thing, there's a keyboard that you can get that has a lot of the common like citations or symbols that you would need, and it was the best, probably like $60 that I've ever spent in my life, because it'll do the small caps and stuff like that for you as well, and you can toggle like your bold, italics, and stuff, so you don't have to set up short keys or anything like that. And it has a lot of like, it'll input plaintiff when you hit
the symbol for plaintiff or defendant or appellate or anything like that. So, like, shameless plug on that, because that was the best thing I've ever purchased.
Good to know.
What was the name of that again? Could you just like throw it in the chat?
Yes.
That's some pretty good resource. I wish I knew about that. Save a lot of time.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Keep asking questions because I think we're in here until like 1:15, so we have plenty of time to get through everything if you guys have questions. Okay, I guess you can. Okay. Brandon?
On average, of all the footnotes that we're editing for somebody else's note, how many of them actually need to be changed? Because I imagine if somebody's writing a note, they're probably pretty good at research and citation anyway because they made it on law review. So, I mean, is it uncommon to go through 30 or 35 or however many footnotes that you're assigned and not find that many mistakes?
You're gonna find mistakes.
You're gonna find mistakes.
Because when we were writing our notes, like, we're focused. Yes, we want to like make sure our citations are like as good as we think they can be, but like people are going to miss stuff and they're focused on trying to make like the actual body of their work the best it can be. And even with like professors and scholars on articles, like the whole reason we have like ESSs and you all doing these assignments is because there's probably going to be mistakes on like half, if not majority of the footnotes, even if it's just like half the time it's like a little period was like italicized when it wasn't supposed to be, or like something was in all caps when it was supposed to be in like lowercase. So it's just like little things like that will probably be wrong. So
I will say too, I was kind of surprised. You'll be surprised with the articles because I think a lot of scholars they just kind of like throw like the link to their citation in there, and they're like they're more focused on like the body of their work. So the article citations usually are a lot worse than the note ones. Usually I'm pretty much editing every single one of those. Like, you saw the girl, the examples that we threw up, like, she spent 9.5 hours editing citations. I mean, that's a little extreme, in my opinion, but, I mean, it takes a while. Like, you need to check every single detail about someone's citation, so it takes a while, especially the first few, to, like, get used to it, making sure every single thing is correct. Like, do they have the correct letters capitalized? Do they put, like, the volume in the right, like, spot? Like, and then you'll find, like, weird online sources, and then you have to figure out how is this even supposed to be cited. Like, so
just take your time with it, especially the first one. It'll get way easier as you go, but there are bound to be things wrong. So if you're going through and you're like, no changes for every single footnote, then you probably missed something.
Yeah, and like the first note that we're editing is Sarah Pennington's, which you saw in the video. She won Best Note, and even with hers, like in the examples I'm going to show you, there are changes to make. It doesn't mean that like she was lazy or didn't cite anything right. It's just like there are common mistakes that are easily missed. Another thing that I wanted to point out that was interesting from that video is Seth mentioned that what he would do is he would make a citation and he wouldn't put id if the next citation followed was the same thing, because when he was like editing and moving things around, sometimes like the id would follow and it actually wasn't the same source. So that's another thing to look for is when we pick an id and it's not the exact same source. So like not everybody use the same method as that. So there are times when just like people make mistakes, and it's not because their note's bad or anything like that. It's just there are common mistakes that everyone misses because this blue book is very dense. So
I will say I noticed that too when I was turning in my note, because once you start editing, you don't realize, like you're working till the last minute, you start moving things around, you don't realize that it messes up your citations, and then you try to go back and fix it all, but it doesn't always work out that way. So, yeah.
Just things you'll also just like pick up on and learn kind of as you're going through.
Anybody else have any other questions before we move on to the next section? These are all great questions. So if you have any, please feel free to interject. So any questions before we move on? So I'm going to try to share my screen. We'll see how this goes. All right. Let's see. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm sorry. My computer is saying I have to close out of something before I can share it. So I'm gonna hop off for a second. Sorry. This is so annoying.
All good.
Can you all see that? Hopefully.
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. So we're going to kind of go through an example of kind of how to work through an ESS. But before we get to that, I'm going to show you a couple of resources that are going to be really helpful. These resources weren't available to us last year, and I wish they were. So one is the Blue Book guide, which was emailed by April, and all the documents that she shared before orientation. Actually, something I wanted to know is, does everybody have the Blue Book? Can you raise your hand if you don't have the Blue Book, and I'll see. Does anybody not have the Blue Book? I had a feeling some people might not. Anybody else not have the Blue Book? Okay, so it looks like it's just Anthony, and that might be because in your 1L year, you probably use Allwood. Yeah, exactly. So Allwood and the Blue Book are pretty similar. From what I understand, the only difference is how you find where you're citing. It has to be the same citations because everybody uses the same uniform citations. But for law review, we use the Blue Book. We had Blue Books provided to us at our orientation. So because we're online and not doing this over Zoom, we weren't able to give out Blue Books. I will make a note for April and Katie and make sure that you get a Blue Book because I had a feeling this might happen. But this Blue Book guide is going to be helpful that I was sharing, even if you don't have the Blue Book. So I will make a note for Katie that some people don't have the Blue Book. And I'm guessing nobody has the Texas manual, right? Does anybody have the Texas Law Review manual on? It looks like this. That was another one that was provided to us, and I'm guessing nobody has that. But I think on Teams, somebody just made a scan of it. So I can show you where that is too. So hang on one second. Okay, so this is the Blue Book guide. And basically what that is just quick little bullets about each of the rules that are most common that are going to come up. And this isn't meant to replace the Blue Book or anything, so I would still use the Blue Book. But this is kind of just a quick reference guide for a couple of things. And it has some interesting things to look for, because the way you cite something on a law review note or article is going to be different than a memo at work or a brief or anything like that. one of the most common things is for a law review note, a case name is not italicized, but for a brief or a memo, your cases are italicized. So that's just like an example. But this is a helpful document that April sent out. It's just kind of like, here are some quick tips on the Blue Book. If you go into Teams in the general on volume 59, when you guys get added to it, there's a tab up here that says Texas Manual. You're going to click on that, and there is a PDF copy of the Texas Manual. And the Texas Manual is for grammar and style, especially tailored to like lawyers and law review. So this is where you're going to go when you're making your text edits to make all the changes for like grammar and syntax and things like that. Does anybody have any questions? I keep getting chat messages, but I'm not sure if it's from this or not, because I can't see my screen. Does anybody have any questions about the Blue Book Guide or the Texas Manual? All right, so seeing none, let me make sure I covered everything I was supposed to. But yeah, when you get access to Teams, you'll be able to find the Texas Manual on there. I have a copy of it, like a hard copy of it, because we were given it last year. Any questions? All right, go ahead.
Is there a way that, like, once all of this shenanigans is over, we could get a, like, hard copy of that, just because I work better with, like, I'm very tactile?
Yeah, I'm going to make a note of that as well for Katie April and make sure that we're getting physical copies out, because I think part of your dues to be on law review goes towards things like that. So you should definitely get a physical copy as well. I'm not sure how it's going to work out because we're not in person, but I'll make sure I ask the higher ups about that. Anybody else have any questions? All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a couple of examples of footnotes. So if you could, I think the best way to do this is to go to my email that I sent you last night and pull up the ESS. So it's going to look something like this. All right, so this is the email I sent last night. Did anybody not get the email? Okay, so we have a document called Pennington Edited, which is Sarah Pennington's note. So this is the note that you're going to be working off of. And then this document that's called Pennington ESS Edited, this is the ESS that you're going to upload all of the footnotes and all the corrections and everything like that. So this is what yours looks like. I'm going to point out a couple of things here. So you'll see that there's a column called Pages Assigned. And what that means is these are for the textual edits, which means the actual body of the text is what you're going to be editing. So, for example, if you're assigned pages 1 through 4, you are responsible for the text, which is this big block here, not the footnotes, just the text. You're going to be making grammatical and syntax changes to it. So that's where you're going to be using the Texas manual, which is on Teams if you don't have it. And like Kristen pointed out, which I thought was a good point, I wouldn't make too many changes in terms of styling, because you still want to keep like the author's voice because it's their note. at the same time, you want to make sure everything's accurate. So like Kristen and Ali can correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't make too many textual edits. I changed like obvious errors, but for the most part, I left a lot of things how the author intended it to. Did you make many textual edits, Ali and Kristen?
No, not usually. Like sometimes there might be like one little word here or there, but that was about it.
Yeah, I didn't either. Like if I read a sentence that I truly just thought like, I was like, what's happening here? Like totally lost. Like I said, I would maybe like star it or like make some sort of mark, like a comment being like, this makes no sense to me. But like you said, no, I didn't really change the style very, very often at all. It was more just like something spelled wrong or like there should be a comma here or if this is a run-on sentence. But yeah, not really the style.
Right. So what you're going to do is if you're assigned pages 1 through 4, you're going to go through the article and you're going to go down to here in the section labeled textual edits. So let's say, for example, this is the sentence that you wanted to change. You're just going to copy and paste it onto here. So this is the original sentence. And then the page number of the note is page 1. Down here is where you're going to make the change. So like, let's say this isn't accurate, but like, let's say you wanted to put a comma here. You're going to put the comma. And then the reason and authority for the change is going to be from the Texas Law Review Manual. So if you go on to the PDF of the Texas Manual, I think commas are, can't remember exactly where. I think they're at the end. But you can see it's broken up by like topic. So like if you wanted to make something italic, you would go to chapter 4 and you would put the reason and authority is Texas Law Review Manual Rule 4.1, something like that. And then you would just say, my change, it's mostly correct, just added a comma, something like that. And that way, when I go and I look through your changes that you've made, I know exactly the exact change because looking at these two sentences, they look almost identical. And I may not know just from looking at it what the changes that you made. You do not have to copy and paste every sentence from these pages. You only have to copy and paste the sentences of the changes you're going to make. So you don't have to like put the entire block of all 4 pages that you're assigned. You only have to copy and paste in the changes that you made. And like I said before, I probably made like 5 or so textual edits. I didn't make very many textual edits. Does anybody have any questions so far on like textual edits, things like that? Alrighty. So now we're going to look at what the bulk of the work is going to be on, and that is going to be the footnote citation changes. So if you look on your ESS, this is your first page. It's got like the member, and it's got the textual edits, and you have this big block here. If you scroll down, you're going to see footnotes. And so what I've done is I've pulled example footnotes from each one of your sections. So if you look here, each of you have been assigned approximately 30 to 40 footnotes because this article has a lot of footnotes in it. So this one, it has a big bulk of work. But luckily, Sarah's pretty good with her citations and everything like that. So there aren't too many changes. And you're going to notice that some people maybe have less and some people maybe have more. That doesn't mean like I don't like you or anything. It means that for some sections of the paper, they just have a bunch of ids. So some people may have more citations to edit, but that just means you may have more IDs than other people. I was trying to be fair and like divide up the amount of time you're going to have to spend on this. So like if I gave everybody the same exact amount, someone may like 20 IDs and another person gets like 20 full citations. So I was trying to be fair with that and kind of divide it up. And the footnotes that you're assigned, you have next to your name here, and you're responsible for all those footnotes in your range. For the footnotes, unlike the textual edits, you do need to put every single footnote. So I would say the first thing that I would do is I would make a copy of this block here where it has the footnote and make however many I'm assigned. So if I'm assigned 35, I'm going to make 5 boxes like this. And I'm going to put 1, 2, footnote 1, footnote 2 here, footnote 3 here. If anybody has any questions so far, feel free to interrupt me. I know this is a lot of information, but I think it's going to make more sense when we start going through it. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. So what I'd like to do is start going through and making some edits together. So if everybody could have the ESS pulled up, if you want to, you can, when you send in your completed ESS, if you want to include footnotes that are not assigned to you, the footnotes that we're about to do altogether, feel free. Even if you don't submit them to me, I still recommend going through and doing the footnotes together, because the more you practice, the more you're going to get the hang of it. So like, do the footnotes together. If you end up deleting them and taking them out, that's fine. But for right now, I recommend let's all do this together so that we get exactly, we all get practice together, because I think the best way is to just do it. So our first footnote that we're going to do together is footnote 1. So this is for Courtney. And footnote 1 in her assigned section is on page 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to footnote 1. I'm going to copy it, paste it onto here. I don't like how it's white because you can't really see it. So I'm going to change it to black, and I'm going to kind of bump up the font size so you all can see it. So this first footnote is a citation to an internet source. And the way I know that is because we have an internet URL link on here. So I know the most common form of citation is an internet authority. So the internet authority in the Blue Book is Rule 18.2. So I'm going to go to Rule 18.2 in my Blue Book, where it has all the citations for the internet. So when you're citing an internet source, the style is you have the author's name first, followed by a comma. The title of the article is in italics, then a comma, then the source, which is in small caps, followed by the date. If there's a time on the article, you're going to put the time that it was uploaded to the internet source after this, followed by a comma, and then the URL link. So for this footnote number 1, the only change that needs to be made is she actually spelled the source wrong. So she spelled it Ipsos, it's supposed to be Ipsos. So that's not really like wrong in this, that she didn't style the citation right. She just made a spelling error. So there's not much change to be made here. If you do make a change, what you're going to do is you're going to put it right in there. You're going to put the rule. So it's Rule 18.2.2 is the internet source. The comment is going to be, why did you make this change? So I'm going to say, this is mostly correct. She just spelled
ipsos wrong. Does anybody have any questions on this first footnote? So that's exactly what you're going to do for each assigned footnote. So make sure you're going through and you're making sure that like this is actually an internet source. If I, copy this link and I go up here and I search it, that actually like pulls up the article, and it's not going to pull up for me because there's a period. So here is the article, the internet source that she's citing, right? October 5th, 2018. Make sure I go in here and it says October 5th, 2018. Perfect. Let's check out the authors. We got Chris Jackson, Mallory. Yep. And we have the date right. We have the URL link. Make sure there's a period at the end of the citation. There's just little things like that that you should be looking for. Any questions on footnote number 1? So for Courtney, who I don't think is here, the first footnote for her is done. So this is how you're going to go through and do every single footnote. Let's do another example together. So for the first assigned footnote for Dimitri is number 32. If I go over here on the document, number 32 is an id. So we're going to skip through that one because it's not going to be very helpful for you to do an id. And we're going to do number 33 instead. So for footnote 33, we have another internet source. So I'm going to copy the footnote 33 from over here, paste it in. I'm going to make this black so you can see it. Okay. So for this footnote, actually a really helpful thing when you do copy and paste is sometimes there'll be spelling mistakes and they'll point out something like this where she forgot a comma. So we have this citation that doesn't have a comma after the date. So the change I'm going to make on here is I'm going to put a comma after October 4th. I'm going to make sure everything else is right. So we have the author followed by a comma. Then we have the title of the article, the internet source. And for a helpful tip for these internet sources, make sure like the style of the title remains the same. So you'll notice like why the revolution will not be tweeted is not capitalized. What I would do is I would just go to that internet source and make sure that it matches up. So I'm going to go over to here and make sure that this matches up. And Malcolm Gladwell here says why the revolution will not be tweeted, and he doesn't have it capitalized. So that all matches up. So the only change that we had to make on this 8.2.2, mostly correct, just changed or just added comma after the date and before year. You may feel the need to explain a little more than what I'm putting in because the changes that I'm making are pretty small. If it's like a big change, you may have to explain yourself more. But if it's making a small change, like putting in a comma like this, I am totally cool with you just putting one bullet point saying just added a comma. This is what the rule says. Does anybody have any questions?
I actually have a question. So when you are going through these, I don't know, Chris and I were just chatting about it. When we were taught to do our footnotes, we always cited the rule for each part, even if it was correct. So are you only citing currently the rules for the things that are wrong? Or
no,
the rule in general?
Right. So like these two were just internet sources and the rule is just 18.2.2.
I just wanted to clarify that everyone knew they're supposed to cite the rule for, even if it's right, you should still put what rule it is, because then when we're going through and checking your work, we're not going to have to look up the rule ourselves. You guys will have already written it, so we can just go through real quick and double check and make sure it's correct.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so make sure even if it's right, put in the rule there. So we're actually going to do an example where she does have the citation correct. So I'll show that too. Any other questions? I know this is a lot of information, but I feel like practicing it is just going to be the best way to do it. Any questions? All right, let's go back. Okay, so we've done footnote 1, footnote 33 for Dimitri. We're to go down to Anthony's. So Anthony, his first footnote is 63, which is a blank footnote. So if you come across a footnote that's blank, that's going to be like how Kristen was saying, you're going to have to find the citation yourself. Most of the time, it's going to be from the surrounding footnotes. So I think just for this one, 63, it's the same sentence, but she didn't have a footnote here that should have been. So you could probably just put it there. So like that's an example of a blank footnote. We don't have many blank footnotes on here because if you notice and like scrolling through this, almost every sentence has a footnote after it. So there are not many footnotes to be added. But since it's a blank footnote, we're going to skip over that one and we're going to go down to 64. 64 is this. Okay. And again, it's an internet source. Like I was saying, most of the sources in this article are going to be internet sources. So I see on here, again, it's an internet source. It looks like everything's accurate. I'm not going to do it, but if you're assigned this footnote, what I would do is I would copy and paste this URL link, make sure everything's spelled right, make sure you can actually go to the internet source and it pulls up, and make sure the style of the title is the same. So we have the author followed by a comma. The title of the article is italicized. Source has small caps, it looks like. We have the date, and then we have our URL link. So this one, it looks right to me. We're going to put correct. Reason and authority, again, it's 8.2.2. Comments, no changes. So that's what you're going to do if you're right. So if you think that the citation is well done and the citation is fine, you can just put correct, no changes, short and sweet. And like Ali pointed out, make sure you still put the rule so that I can go to it and I can double check your work. So that's what you should be doing if you have the correct citation in there. Any questions on footnote 64? All right. We're going to go ahead and move on. So like I was saying on this one, we have a big string of ids here. So for this person, they may have been assigned more footnotes, and that just means they have a big string of ids. Especially when you get into the analysis section of the note, towards the end of the article, it's just there's going to be a lot of ids in here. So we're not going to do her first footnote. We're going to do number 98. 98 has an id, but it's a little different. So I wanted to point this out and do it together. This is something that Sarah Pennington in her note does a lot. So you'll see over here on her article that she has a lot of after a citation, she'll just put in more information. So she has an id here. And then she has here's some other helpful tidbits for you if you're paying attention to the footnotes, right? So it didn't make it into the text of her article, but she still felt it was important to point it out. So what you want to do on something like this is make sure that all the like sources match up with what she's actually saying here. So for instance, in this example, you may have to go to the source and make sure that, you know, something like this isn't a direct citation that should be in quotes, anything like that. Since this is kind of a paraphrase, make sure the style of it is right. So if you notice over here, because she doesn't put it in quotes and she's paraphrasing, it doesn't have to be bracketed. But if she's directly sending it, it does have brackets. So that's kind of like a quirky thing to watch out for. Again, it looks like this one is right. Make sure on these ids that the period is italicized. It's kind of like a weird thing to point out. But like the period in the id is italicized. So check for that, make sure that that's right. Looks like everything is good in here. If you're assigned this footnote, so if you're Lindsay, I would just make sure that what she says after the citation, this kind of like, here's some helpful, more information, make sure it's just lining up with the source. So I would go find the source and try to find the page for this. But otherwise, it looks correct to me. Again, check for like grammar and syntax, anything like that. And then you're going to put in the rules here. So you're going to notice that this comes up fairly often in this, and this is kind of like a unique thing to Sarah, because in her note that she put a lot of like footnotes in here with some more information. So you're going to check those for both citation and for like grammar and syntax, things like that. Any questions on footnote 98? All right. We're going to move on to 132, which is going to be down here. Again, this is an internet source, so I'm going to copy footnote 132. Put that in here. Bump up the font size. Okay, so for this one, again, we have an internet source. And since we've done so many, this correction may jump out at you. So I think Dimitri had asked about small caps. So because this is an internet source, the source of the citation, Pew Research Center, this should be in small caps. This one is not, so we're going to have to make that change. So I'm going to copy and paste it down here to my edit. I'm going to highlight Pew Research Center. I'm on a Mac. So on a Mac, you're going to go up to Format and then Font. Click on that. And it's going to pull up this text box here. I'm going to click on small caps. And what it's going to do is it's going to change the font from the normal font to small caps. And that's how it should be. I'm going to put 18.2.2 in here in my comments. Mostly correct. Just changed Pew Research Center to small caps per rule 18.2.2. Again, if you're assigned this footnote, so if you're Brandon, make sure you go to the URL link, make sure everything works out fine there. Making sure this title matches up with the style of the title on the internet source, and make sure like the citation lines up with what she's actually saying in the text. I'm going to stop a second and let's see if we have any questions, because we did a couple in a row there. Does anybody have any questions so far in how we're doing these footnotes? And Kristen and Ali, like if you have any like helpful tips that you found useful when you were doing yours, feel free to jump in too. Anybody have any questions?
I'll send you guys over kind of an ESS that I did and kind of how we each like to have it set up too for just like when you're turning them into us. Like I'm sure Dan will send you one of his and I'll send you one of mine so you can kind of see the rules and just how it makes it easiest and kind of little things that we did that made it work best for us. So I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I can do that.
When I started out doing mine, my notes editor and my articles editor, they had us do like, so for a citation, like we had to put every rule in and like whether it was correct or not, and then just be like, so if you had a case name, like, and it was, they italicized it correctly, like we'd be like, okay, italicized correctly according to rule, and then put the rule number. So like we had a little more of an explanation for why it was correct or why it was incorrect. I mean, that's kind of a preference for Dan and Allie, whether they want you to do that for turning in your all's assignments. But honestly, I feel like that kind of helped me, especially in the beginning, trying to learn all the rules. And then as I got better at it, I could kind of shorten down my explanations and kind of go a lot faster. But yeah, that's just how I did it in the beginning. And that's how my editors made me do it. But like Allie and Dan said, I'm sure they'll tell you more about how they prefer you all to submit it because they're the ones that have to check it and go through them.
Yeah. So my editor did not make me do that. So, you know, I'm okay personally if you just put exactly how I did it and just say correct. I'm okay with that. But if you feel like when you're starting out, you want to make sure that every single part is okay and you want to like list that out, that's totally fine too. I don't want to like do anything that's going to like hinder your ability to go through the citations or anything like that. So if you want to go through and like on 18.2.2, like a lot of these internet sources, and you want to say author name is correct, title of the article is italicized, that's correct, there's a date, that's correct. If you want to do that, totally fine with me. If you just want to put correct, I'm okay with that too.
Don't hate me, but I think for my first article that I assign you all, I might have you guys kind of do that just because I think you'll get it down a little bit quicker and it'll help me when I go through and double check. It'll make it a little bit faster for me as well. And that's just kind of how I was taught. But it should be pretty easy because you guys have that Blue Book reference guide and you guys are the first to get that. It was something kind of an idea that the editorial board came up with. So even though you are having to type out reasons like Rule 18.2.2 states that author's name should be italicized, it'll be really quick for you to write out because you'll just be able to copy and paste from the Blue Book guide. So I might have you guys do that just because I think it'll be beneficial for you all and for me. But moving forward after that, if you guys are doing a great job, I might say you can start shortening it, but we'll just kind of go from there.
I feel like maybe then we should just make it uniform for both of us. So let's just say for this first assignment, do list out like this is correct because it doesn't have to be real elaborate, but just say a couple of bullet points. This is why it's right, so that I know that you're going to the rule and you're looking. So let's make that uniform for both of us. It's just going to be easier that way. So yeah. Anybody have any questions? I saw Brandon, he put in the chat, do you ever run into citations that are dead links? I don't think it ever came up for me. I don't know about Ali and Kristen, if like you could not pull up a source. For me, I don't think that ever happened.
So, who is in charge of that, Dan? I don't know if you know, who's in charge of finding like, say the source you need is like a book in the library, but you can't find that book. You have to go to that person and she will get it ordered and send it to the law review office and you can check it. So I think it's kind of similar to dead links. Like if something's not coming up, you could reach out to her. Who is in charge of that? The managing editor? Would that be Leah?
Yeah, I think it probably is.
Okay, we'll double check and clarify that for you all, but there will be sometimes, like, I remember for my first note, there was a book that I couldn't find, and I didn't really know what to do because no one explained that to me. So basically, I just went to the library. It was checked out or something, or they didn't have it. So then I went to Anita, who was the managing editor for our class, and I was like, hey, like, we don't have this book. And she was like, okay, just like go ahead and turn in your ESS. I'll order the book, and when it comes in, you can check it then. So that's usually how that works. If there's a source you can't find, you can come to one of us or go to her, and she'll take care of it.
And a lot of times too, when you can't find a source, it's generally more for articles, and I feel like for notes, like most students' notes, because like since we're doing it, it's usually stuff that we got either from the library or from online or Lexis, so you all should be able to do it too. It's usually when you run into these articles, sometimes like Allie said, there'll be books or other stuff that you maybe can't find, and that's when you just let them know.
Anybody have any questions so far? I know this is a lot of information, and you may be feeling overwhelmed. I know, like during my orientation, I was like, "What is going on? What is this?" And I think probably just practicing it over and over again is going to be the most helpful, most beneficial thing for you. I'm going to be available by phone and by email if you have any questions, because for this student note that Sarah Pennington did, like for the most part, she's citing internet sources that are easily findable, but there are a couple of ones that I noticed where I'm like, ooh, that's kind of like unique. So you may have some questions, and I definitely want you to reach out to me and anybody else for help on that, because we want to make sure that we're checking the citations and everything looks good. Any questions before we jump back into the examples? Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say, because I was a poli-sci major at U of L, some of the book sources that she cites, or like Gladwell, I might have some of the books in my bookshelf. So, I mean, if somebody needs to check to see if I have it, because I'd taken some of the master's level courses.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be very helpful. I can't remember off the top of my head if she cited a bunch of books. But yeah, if anybody needs to go find a book source, yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
I'm sure everyone knows too from undergrad that you can go online to U of L's library page, and that way you can check online. You can type in the title of a book and see if U of L has it, and they'll list all of their libraries, and they'll state like, we have one copy at Ekstrom, or we have one copy at the law library, or it'll say we don't have this at all anywhere or online. So that's when, if you can't find it in any of U of L's libraries, just contact one of us and we'll get it ordered in.
And for the notes too, you can actually reach out to the author, because they're going to have the citation, they're going to have the source because they were citing it too. So that's probably an easy way to do it too, is to just send them a quick email and just say, hey, like, I'm editing your note and I can't find the source. Can you help me out? Like, where'd you find it? Because she has the same access that you do, so should be able to find them. Any other questions? All right. I know this is kind of tedious, but I want to make sure that everybody on here has at least one of their assigned citations done, and like we do it all together as a group. So let me go back to this, and we did. We just did 132. So we're going to go down here, and we're doing 167. Footnote 167 down here. So this is kind of a weird one because, again, this is a citation to an internet source, but it's on two separate pages. So that's kind of a weird like formatting thing that happened. I think it probably happened on mine because I started adding footnotes. The like format of the document kind of got all wonky. So that it may not look the same on yours. So we're just going to have to copy and paste from like two different sections. So I apologize for that. But so this is in two different spots here, two different pages. So we got this. So we have footnote 167 here. And I don't think Meredith is here. But we'll make sure she gets this And you'll notice, again, this is an internet source. So like I was saying before, for a student note, a lot of internet sources, that makes things a lot easier. But the thing that should jump out at you is this is not in small caps, right? So you're going to have to change this into small caps again. So we're going to copy the link. We're going to take this out, make this small caps because it's in all caps. We got small caps time, right? So it's such a minute difference. And you're probably thinking like, I wouldn't be able to catch that. And you may not on your first attempt, and that's okay. We're going to give you feedback after you turn in your first assignment. But that's something that jumped out at me because I've been doing a lot of citations with Law Review. So I know to look for those things. And for someone like a first year member, you may not have like the practice on citations and you may not be able to catch something like that. But that's okay. The more you practice, the more you're going to be fine. 18.2.2 again. Comments, was it correct? Just changed time to small caps. And if you want to throw in, author name, title in italics, date is correct, URL link works. If you want to throw in something like that, just so I know that you are checking that, I think that's how we're going to do it now. Let's do that and just make sure she's hitting all the points. Go onto the URL link and make sure that the link works. Make sure you can find the source and it matches up with what she's saying. But those are all the changes I have for 167. Any questions on footnote 167? All right. So the next one we're going to do is we're going to do 208. So we got a big gap here with all these ids. Okay, so I wanted to do 208 because this one's kind of a quirky one because she has like two different footnotes inside one. And you want to make sure that both are right. So we have this here. And what this is, it's a journal. So this is an entirely different form. So we've done a lot of 18.2.2 internet citations. This one is a journal. And the reason why I know that is because I've had more practice with it. But the biggest indicator is the citation looks like this. So for a journal, or if you're citing another law review, you're going to have this number here is the volume, followed by the publication name. This number is the first page, followed by a comma, and then the page that is cited.
143.
So for a journal, that is rule 16. So if you have a blue book, jump on over to rule 16 for periodic materials. And if you don't have a blue book, you can use that like quick guide. But you'll see on rule 16 for periodic materials how to stylize it. So we have the author's full name, followed by a comma, then the title of the article. The title of the article is italicized. We have the journal, then the name of the journal, followed by the page number that it starts the article, and then followed by the page citation, and then the year it was published. So, and then she has this in survey research. She kind of has like another add-on for the footnote, followed by an id, right? So we want to make sure that we are checking every single part of this because it's kind of more like two footnotes in one. So for me, it looks like everything is good on here. We have author name followed by a comma, italics here. We have volume number, the journal name. And maybe what I would do is I would go try to find the journal and make sure that everything is matching up with how she's signing it. So most of the time, you're going to see a journal citation more so in the articles, more so than the notes. So you'll see more journals cited for professors and things like that. But otherwise, for the most part, there aren't too many journals that are going to be cited in student notes. But for me, this is correct. I'm going to cite Rule 16. In the comments, I'm going to say author name is correct. Title of the article is in italics. We have journal, volume, followed by a name of journal in small caps. Is cited are correct, followed by year. Something simple like that. Just point out all the. Then we have an id after this. The id is correct to me, looks like. And I know that ids are Rule 4, I believe. So then I'm going to put a bullet that just says id is correct. Something like that. We have an italicized period. If you want to throw that in there too. You know, something simple, just so I know that you're checking all the different parts of it. Any questions for 208? I think we have just one more, so let's finish this up. All right, so we're going to do footnote 247. And this one, we just have a whole lot of vids. So this person's going to look out. Original footnote is an id. I'm going to make sure everything's right on here. Looks like the period is italicized. So this one, no changes. Rule 4.1, correct. Id is italicized. And period is italicized. I'm only pointing out that like periods after ids are italicized because that's a common mistake that some people make. It's just one of those things you learn when you're on law review long enough doing so many citations. Another thing with the ids, like it may be, to like take a shortcut and save some time, you may just copy and paste a bunch of ids. But I wouldn't do that. I would make sure that the actual body over here is matching up with what you have over here, because there may be times where a period is not italicized or they just forgot to italicize id, something like that. So make sure everything's lining up there. And make sure, something else I noticed for hers, like she doesn't use many introductory signals. So she almost never uses something like C or C generally. And there may be some spots where the citations are not exactly the same. So she may have to put like a C id. So if you're going to make that change, because they're not exactly the same, you're going to throw that down here. Say like, there should be a C id, something like that. But for this one, it looks like we have no changes. Does anybody have any questions about any of the footnotes that we've done? Anything regarding the ESS? I know this is a lot, but it's going to be helpful if you have questions now. Yeah, go ahead, DJ.
For the ids, like if we come in our first like assigned citation is an id, we need to go back to the previous citation that it's using id for to make sure that the use of id is correct?
Yeah, I would. If they're saying id, like it's matching up with what they said before. So you may have to go like outside of your assigned range, and that's fine. Just make sure, everything's matching up. So yeah, I would go back and look.
Okay.
Tyler?
Are we making changes to the original documents or just putting them in the ESS?
You're going to make changes to the ESS. Yes, you're not going to make any changes to the document itself. Make all the changes on the ESS. Because then, that's for the people making the edits later on. They're going to go into the original document itself and make the change. So you're only going to be editing the ESS. You're not going to touch the original document. Good question. Anybody else have any questions? Ali and Kristen, if you have any final tips for them, I think it would be helpful. This is probably overwhelming, and I know that, and I'm sorry, but this is the life of being on law review. It's going to be a lot of citation edits, so it's not the most fun thing in the world. Oh, I wanted to mention tracking time. That's something I didn't talk about. If you wanted to talk about that, Ali.
So for tracking your time, you're going to need to keep track of how long it took you to do the sources and then how long it took you to edit the footnotes. So especially if you're breaking it up over a period of days, sometimes I know to make it less burdensome on myself, I would do 5 footnotes over the course of 3 days. If I was sitting in class and had 20 minutes before class started, I would try to do something. So, you don't have to be super accurate. It's not billing or anything, but just try to give, a pretty accurate estimate of how long it took you, because these hours are going to go towards getting credit for law review. So you have to get, I think it's 60 hours per credit you're awarded. So if you don't meet that requirement of hours, then you're not going to get the credit for being on law review. And you all should be putting in way more hours than that, so don't worry about meeting it. But just make sure you're tracking your hours, because I made an Excel spreadsheet and just kind of kept track. I was okay, today I worked on an ESS for 4 hours. Yesterday I researched for my note for 3 hours. And that's important to do, because you're going to have to individually insert all of those hours into a form, and you don't want to have to be killing yourself at the end of the semester trying to figure out when you worked on things. And it's just a lot easier to kind of keep track, because then it's easier to insert into that form. Do you have anything else on hours that I'm forgetting?
Yeah. Here's mine. I did exactly what Ali did, and I made an Excel spreadsheet. So I put the date and I put the hours, and I said what I was doing. And that's also going to be helpful, because on your ESS, you're going to see up here under member, you're going to have to put how much time it took. So if you're tracking your hours, it's going to be more beneficial to you when you're turning in your ESS. Another thing I wanted to mention was, when you're done with your ESS, you're going to upload it onto Teams. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Team 2 in the files. You're going to go to Note Editing Assignments. Notice under 1 Pennington, completed ESS, this folder here. And then you're going to click Upload, and you're going to put in your completed ESS. And you're going to style it as your last name _ Pennington _ ESS. So I'll put that in the chat so you can see that too. So when you upload your document, you're going to say something like Campano, Pennington, ESS. And it's going to look like that. And that's where you're going to upload it once it's all done. And like I said in the email, I believe our due date is July 6th. So that's coming up sooner than you're going to expect it to. So I recommend getting a good jump start on your assignment. I'm going to throw in my cell phone on the chat as well. I'm sure you're going to have questions as you're going through it. Like I was saying, it's kind of a stressful thing when you're first starting out, but as you practice more and more, you're going to get the hang of it.
Just on a little bit of a different note before we conclude in our breakout sessions, which I think is kind of soon. feel free when you start researching for your note topics and working on your note, because like Allie and Dan are in charge of your articles and note citations. So, you know, they'll definitely, everyone's free to help, but like they're going to be a little bit busier. But symposium, I have a little bit more free time throughout like the semester and stuff. So if you ever need help with your note or like finding a topic or research or just stuff like that, like I'm pretty free right now. So feel free to reach out if you need it. Like I said, I know Allie and Dan are more than willing to help you too and are great sources as well, but their just responsibilities start a little bit sooner than mine. So if you all need any help with your note at any point in this process, hit me up.
Also, sorry, we're like trying to figure out how to not echo. I know like it can be a little stressful figuring out what to write for your note. A really good resource for me was talking to people that I'm working with. So like last summer I was at the public defender's office, and all of these people that you're working with at firms, like whatever sector of law that they're in, maybe that's a sector that you're interested in. If you're at a firm and you want to write about bankruptcy, like go find a bankruptcy attorney. If you want to write about employment law, like go talk to an employment law attorney. They're also passionate about what they work on, and usually a lot of them, they've been practicing for so long that they see problems in their field. So it's really good to be like, I'm trying to write like my law review note and figure out some topics. Like, are there any areas that you find to be issues, or do you think there's solutions to certain case law that came out or circuit splits? And usually they're going to have some really good ideas because they're going to know more about this subject, and they're going to have like maybe some problems or complaints that they've seen day to day just practicing. So they're a really good resource for trying to get some ideas. Also go to professors. I worked a lot with Professor Abramson about how to mold my note into being something to where it wouldn't be preempted, because you have to make sure that what you're writing about isn't going to be preempted and someone hasn't already written the same thing. So I went to him with what I wanted to write about, and he was like, well, that's kind of a generic topic. I wanted to write about juvenile transfer law. And he was like, here's a way you can make it your own, and no one else will have written about this before. So really utilize those sources because they will help you in the long run, to where you don't have that oh shit moment at the end where your note might be preempted, or you're working on something that you hate and there's not much law on. So try to utilize that. That's my one kind of overall tip I'll throw out.
Does anyone have any questions about anything like note topic, your assignments, the article assignments, finding sources, anything at all? Nope. All right. Well, if you do come across and have questions, like I said,
reach out. We'll throw our numbers in the chat too.
Yeah, don't be like me and spell it wrong.
Hopefully we'll be back in school in the fall and can see you all in person, and it's much easier in person than over Blackboard, but we're going to figure it all out.
And I'll make sure I'll run over to Katie real quick and ask the questions that came up during our session and make sure we get those answered before you leave today, so that you have a better idea. But thank you for bearing with me. I know it's probably a little stressful because there's a lot of information thrown at you. But seriously, anytime, email me, text me, same with Kristen and Allie. Everybody's here to help you out. We don't want to make this like a bad experience or anything. I think there's a lot of benefits of being on law review. You're definitely going to get citation practice, and you're going to, at the end of it, you're going to have a note that you're going to be proud of. So we're here to help you out along the way. Any final questions before we hop off?
I think we're actually going until 1:30 now, Dan, so maybe we could just do like a break if no one has anything else. I think a couple other groups are finishing up, so.
Okay. Yeah, let me hop over to Katie real quick and ask a couple questions, and then But I'll stay on if anybody comes up with anything.